Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and those who do not subscribe to the gender binary. My name is Seth Christenfeld, and I am the literary manager for the York Theatre Company. So you want to know what a literary manager is? Well, think of that time you went to the dentist and you said, I like musicals. And your dentist said, my brother's girlfriend has written a musical. That girlfriend does have to send that musical to a theater to take a look at it, and somebody has to read that musical, and I am that somebody. So if my camera seems weird, it seems weird on my end. I hope it's perfectly fine on your end. It's running a little slowly on my end. That just might be my computer being weird. Or who knows? The internet is a strange place. As I said, I am the literary manager for the York Theatre Company, and since the start of the pandemic, during the lockdown and during the stoppage, whatever we want to call it, and continuing into the present, I've been hosting these sporadic, semi-regular, occasional, streaming new works nights to fill in for the fact that it's been difficult for us to do readings and presentations of new works. So I've been doing these, showing off some works that are some new work that is in the pipeline, hence the title. Not necessarily our pipeline, but the writer's pipeline, somebody's pipeline. And tonight we've got two great shows to introduce you to. So we're going to start with a video from Miss Humanity by Jonathon Lynch and Michael Deguitano, and then we'll bring up Jonathon and Michael to chat for a bit. So here is the first song from that show, and then we'll talk about it, and you'll find out what's going on.
What happened to the scene where I feed the homeless man?
They cut it. They cut it.
And the scene where I teach English to a student from Japan?
They cut it.
Oh.
They cut it.
I know I shot a scene, I saved a kitten from a tree. A scene where I teach someone to be all that they can be. The only scenes they kept in make a total fool of me.
We love it. We love it.
I'm more than that. I have a brain that's big enough to know my movies are inane. But they say, kid, it's your demographic. It makes me want to scream and step out into traffic. I'm more than that. I'd have a say if only people would look past my resume. But I'm held back. I'm pigeonholed. Lo and behold, I'm more than that. I'm not a dope. I've read some books. Oh, how I wish this town would look beyond my looks. The parts I get have no depth to sink in. I'm less respected than the actor who shot Lincoln. I'm more than that. Oh, my mind is numb from making films that range from juvenile to dumb. My self-regard has gone kersplat. I have to show I'm more than that. Hello? Yes, I'm ready to go. Not to the party. Not to the after party. Not the after party. Home! I'm more than that. Don't need these homes with chandeliers and custom-ordered garden gnomes. I'm not complaining. Life is pretty nice. I've had lunch with Gaga and Ron Howard twice. I'm more than that. I must be bold. The stories that I want to tell have not been told. I have a lot I need to say. Not here to play. I'm more than that. Oh, I can't go on. I'm feeling sick. Oh, no one really knows the things that make me tick. A million fans yelling from the bleachers. It isn't why I'm in LA and shooting features. But here I am, stuck in this rut. Please someone tell me why my karma kicks my butt. How did I get to where I'm at? There's more in store. Kick down the door. I know I'm more than that.
Hello.
Gentlemen, welcome.
Hello.
How are you?
Hello. Where are you joining us from tonight, gentlemen?
I'm in Stuytown, down East Village.
And I'm in the Upper East Side, Manhattan.
Yes. I have been to your apartment, Jonathan. It is small and it is cramped and it is lovely.
Yeah, thank you. Just the way I would want it.
Yes, I recognize that piano behind you.
You're
How
welcome
are you
to come
tonight?
here. You're welcome to come here. You know,
One of these days I will, and I'll see one of your dogs in residence.
yes.
Yes. So tell us a bit about Miss Humanity. First off, that was the fantastic Brittany Coleman singing that song. She just closed in company. She is generally excellent. Tell us a bit about Miss Humanity. What is Miss Humanity about?
Well,
Who is Miss Humanity?
Yeah, I got the idea many, many years ago. I was watching the news, and Jason Alexander was on CNN, and he was talking to the interviewer about him and a bunch of Hollywood stars were going to go to Israel to try to advance the peace process. And I'm thinking, oh, of course, you know, Henry Kissinger couldn't do this, and Bill Clinton couldn't do this, and Obama, but George Costanza, he can end a 100-year, religious war. And I got the idea. I was still living in LA at the time, and I first wrote it as a movie. And then I decided to leave LA and come back here and write musicals. So I just basically recycled it into a musical. And it actually works better in a lot of ways as a musical. That first song, just to give you an idea, it's like this Hollywood, this very innocent girl is entering a beauty pageant in her hometown in Colorado. And her big sales pitch is, I want to work for world peace, as most pageant queens do. And the host of the pageant, Rainey Seacoast, who you'll be hearing from later, he says to her, you're very attractive and very smart and funny. With your charm, you can actually go to Hollywood and have a bigger platform for your desire to work for world peace. So she does, and Rainey introduces her to his powerful agent, Devin Levin, and it works. And that song you just heard is like, after 5 years, Carolyn's just making these garbage zombie and teen movies, and she's frustrated with that. And she wants to do more with her time on Earth.
Great. And so how did you guys start working together on this project? I mean, I know the answer of how you guys started working together on this project, but tell the people how you started working together on this project.
Well, my experience with it was that we were all doing the Across a Crowded Room program at the New York Public Library. It's a fantastic program. It sort of plays matchmaker with lyricists and composers and book writers and performers. You get a few master classes with these fantastic professionals out in the industry. And then you give a presentation of a 20-minute project at the end of it. I've done it every year. It feels like summer camp to me at this point. I'm doing it again this year. It's great. And that's when I think I met both of you there in various incarnations. I don't know the same year or not. But
we met when you and I met when you came to do Tune in Time, actually.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That was the first time. Cool.
Yes.
Cool. So my experience then was... and correct me if I'm wrong, my memory's a bit hazy about this one, but Michael and I got along pretty well. We liked each other's works, and he suggested that I come and music direct his Gay No More telethon. You want to talk a bit about that, Michael?
Well, that was basically the first musical I wrote after leaving LA. It was, parody on religious right, conversion therapy. We did a concert of it at the at Green Room, and then we did a few at Midtown Festival a few years later. So yeah, that was our first experience, and I was really looking for a composer to work on my stuff, and Angie's List didn't help at all. So I decided to, Jonathon and I talked at Across a Crowded Room, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah. That opportunity for us to be working together really showed that we can work together very well, and I think that's important in a collaboration. So he sent me everything, because Michael has like 15 musicals in his back pocket that are all written but for the music, which is amazing. So I read over it, and I loved it. It is it's funny, it works so well, like as a piece. Normally the kinds of projects that I do are like, oh, there are these robots in space who are talking about mid-century mathematicians or future time-traveling versions of yourself come back and give you dating advice, things like that.
Makes complete sense.
It makes complete sense, so to speak. Exactly. That's not to say that I'm not a fan of like your, musical comedy and everything like that. I grew up in it. Like that's sort of my bread and butter, really. But when Michael's script passed my way, like I recognized it for the brilliance that it was. And I'm like, I would be a fool not to work on this project. This is just so good. And I get along with him and we would work well. It was kind of a no-brainer at that point.
It's a really, really funny show. So before we talk a bit more about it, though, let's move on. Let's take a moment to play the next song, which we're going to hear from, which is the Resume song. Would you like to set that up for us?
I will set it up. At the premiere of Carolyn's movie, where she storms out, we meet a young, hungry, starving actor from Brooklyn named Randy, who's doing anything he can to meet Carolyn's agent, Devin Levin. So one day he just bursts into his office dressed as a plant waterer and presents his resume.
And this is going to be performed by John McGowan.
John McGowan.
I can dance, I can sing, I could play a lowly peasant or a king. I can do a magic trick, ride a horse and drive a stick. I can do all kinds of shtick to entertain you. Burp at will, cry on cue, play a Buddhist, Mormon, Catholic, or a Jew. I can ride a unicycle or impersonate George Michael. Oh yes, really, if you like, I'll entertain you. I can tumble, do a split, till the audience adores me, I won't quit. Learn my lines, improvise. I'm straight, but I'll do gay sex scenes with guys. I am good at every sport. I am tall, but can act short. It'll be my last resort to entertain you. I do comedy and action. Watch the audience reaction. I'll end up in traction just to entertain you. I can smile. I can brood. I look good in trendy clothes or in the nude. Trained in swords and taekwondo, I will do a puppet show. I'll walk miles through the snow to entertain you. Work with children or with pets. My range is from Mel Brooks to Tracy Letts. Work with others or alone. If I have to, I will work with Sharon Stone. When I was born to act. You may not believe me, but it's just a fact. In a movie, on TV, or on stage, I guarantee you'll be thrilled you got to see me entertain you. I just know before you go, you will give a standing O. That will be the way you show I've entertained you. Love me now or love me later. I don't want to die a waiter. There is nothing greater than to entertain you.
Let him entertain us. Yes. So
For John, he was fairly sick this week, and he put that wonderful piece out there. And he's been in bed all day.
So tell us just a hair more about the plot of this show. We know that she wants to stop world war and create world peace. But what exactly happens with that? Because I mean that's a big ask.
Well, it's like she's making $20 million a picture, and Devin Levin does not want to see his biggest star get killed in a war, so he basically makes one up. There's an island off the coast of Italy where a big movie was canceled, a World War II movie, and so he hires an entire cast, hires Randy, who you just saw John singing, as the president of that country that he made up. And of course, they end up falling in love, which complicates matters a bit. And you will see later Rainey Seacoast, who was Carolyn's best friend, but kind of dim. He wants to be a serious newsman, but he's a reality TV host, Extreme Pet Makeover and shows like that. So when he finds out that Carolyn is going to go do this war without telling him because he'll spill the beans, now his turn to get revenge. So when you see his song later, you'll know what his want is.
And that actually is a perfect segue into playing that third song, which we'll do, and then we'll chat a little more afterwards. contrary to the original schedule. So this is everybody's favorite Robbie Roselle singing Rainy Seacoast song. Oops, helps if I actually play the video instead of just putting up.
I'll be the next Anderson Cooper. That's who I'm going to be. Oh, won't it be so super duper to be more him, less me. Connected, respected, a legend, a star. Last week I had to interview a man who ate a car. I'll be the next Anderson Cooper. That's who I'm going to be. He sees a wrong, he's off to right it. A hero to the oppressed. He hears of evil, he's off to fight it. And always perfectly dressed. He'd swim 100 miles to save a surfer from a shark. Last week I judged a poodle pageant in Canoga Park. I'll be the next Anderson Cooper. That's who I'm going to be. Saves puppies in a hurricane, brings water to a drought. Could feed 1 million homeless with 2 lemons and a trout. He'd burst into a drug den without the slightest care. Yeah, I'm not sure if I could do that. It might really mess my hair. I'll be the next Anderson Cooper. We'll have the same careers. I'll have world leaders on my speed dial instead of Britney Spears. He'd sacrifice his life to help a cause or start a coup. I'd do that if I wasn't so susceptible to flu. I'll be the next Anderson Cooper. That's what I'm going to do. He looks dictators in the eye and tells them they are bad. Whoever he has sex with, it's the best they've ever had. He'll sneak into Iran to save an activist from jail. Not sure if I would do that, 'cause I'd probably break a nail.
He'll be the next Anderson Cooper. That's who you're going to be.
That's who I'm going to be.
None of his reels contain a blooper. He's must-see TV. His smile New Year's Eve is all you need to light Times Square.
Not sure if I could stand the cold. I'm not a polar bear.
You'll be the next Anderson Cooper. That's who you're going to be.
I always dreamed one day that I would be a trusted newsman. The way my life has turned out has given me the blues, man. Until I
roasted the mole.
I'll be the next Anderson Cooper. Then kids might want to be me.
Love that, Robbie Rosell, the busiest man in showbiz.
Yep.
Other thing, this is a really funny show, and I want to know what's your secret, Jonathan. Even the music is funny. How do you? What is the key to writing music that is funny?
Well, first of all, thank you. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but to say that like timing is at least almost everything goes a long way toward it. Usually I start with the melody, like the way that the lyrics are on the page, and I make sure basically that I just sort of don't mess up the rhythm of the comedy on it. That's sort of, if I preserve that through every step of the way, then usually it tends to be funnier than not. It's also something about the way that we speak a word and the sort of natural pitches that come out of it. If they sort of contradict where they're headed, then that also tends to muddy the meaning of the line and make things less funny. And the more that you muddy it, the less funny it is. When it gets into the into the orchestration of it, into the like accompaniment and everything like that, at least with this show, I was definitely aiming for those sort of like old Mel Brooks kinds of Looney Tunes sort of things, because that has a very sort of comedic connotation to it, obviously, because we're dealing with the funny cartoons and everything like that, and put it all together, and that roughly gets you in the zone at least. Then a fantastic performer will carry it the rest of the way, and the original text is the progenitor of all of it. So funny.
Makes a lot of sense to me. Michael, one last question.
Yes.
You had your years in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any memories of crazy things that you saw people do to make stars happy?
I could fill a book, which I may someday do, but my favorite story is
That you can tell us without getting sued, of course.
involving Rodney Dangerfield. He can't sue us because he's
Okay.
dead. After the success of Back to School, my agents said Harold Ramis wanted to meet us to write Back to School too. And Rodney insisted that him and Sam Kinison, the late great Sam Kinison, be equal, because Sam was a major part of the first success of the first movie. And so my writing partner then, Larry, we put together a whole big outline for Rodney and Sam doing a semester in London as teachers in London. And so Harold Ramis loved it, and everybody loved it. And then we go meet Rodney. He's in a pink bathrobe at a hotel in Beverly Hills. And he's like, "What is this shit? Why is this guy equal to me? I'm the star of this movie." And suddenly my writing partner and Harold's looking over and like, I have no idea what that, it was maybe the cocaine talking. I don't know. So we went to my car and immediately called our agents and said, "Get us out of this," because we knew it would be hell. And so that's one of like 1,000 stories I've got, which I may someday put in a book. If people still read books, does anybody want
I
to
read books.
Anybody read a book?
Or at least turn it into or at least turn them into a musical or something.
That's true.
All the shit I did in Hollywood, the musical.
And Jonathan could write the music.
Yeah.
Happily.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing Miss Humanity with us. I look really forward to seeing the show on its feet at some point to see just how much funnier it is off the page than it was in my head. People can find you online in a few places. Jonathan's website is jonathanlynch.music.com. That's Jonathan with 2 O's and only 1 A. So don't forget
Jonathon.
Yes, don't forget to properly misspell Jonathan.
Yes, please.
And Michael, you don't have a website, but you do have an email that's right down here in case anyone wants to find out more about Miss Humanity from you. Because
there will be websites coming for both me and the show. COVID,
great
pandemic really kind of just screwed everything up, but they'll be coming.
Excellent. Well, again, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and look forward to seeing you and more of the show.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. Before we move on to the second half, a few notes. The York is Still, my whole screen just went white for some reason. This is not good. Okay, good. Okay, good. I was afraid that Firefox was going to crash for a moment, but it didn't. Okay, sorry about that momentary pause, folks. The York did lose our home of many years in January of 2021 when a flood took out the bottom 2 floors of the church where we'd been based. So right now we do remain without an actual home base, but we are producing up at the theater at St. Jean's on 76th Street and Lexington. And starting in a little over a month, on September 13th, we are bringing back last year's successful Cheek to Cheek, Irving Berlin in Hollywood, a new review, or it was a new review then, now it's a slightly less new review, based on the songs and stories of Irving Berlin during his years in Hollywood. Conceived, directed, and choreographed by the terrific 4-time Tony nominee Randy Skinner, with a book by Barry Kleinbort, and music direction by all-time York friend David Hancock Turner, and that promises to be terrific. And then starting on November 22nd and running through the end of the year, we have a new review, Hoagy Carmichael Stardust Road, which is a review with some sort of narrative, I think. I haven't actually seen the script, based around the songs of the great composer and performer Hoagy Carmichael. That is produced in association with Hoagy's son, Hoagy Bix Carmichael, and is directed by Susan H. Schulman, who directed some of our bigger York hits, not in a while, but has. She directed our production of Sweeney Todd, which moved to Broadway, and our production of Merrily We Roll Along, which should have. And it has choreography by her frequent collaborator, Michael Lichtefeld, and has music direction and arrangements by the great Larry Yerman. And that is starting, like I said, on November 22nd. And somewhere in there, I presume we're doing our yearly Oscar Hammerstein Award benefit, but I don't know the date, and I can't tell you who we're honoring yet. So, but as Jim would always say, for a large enough donation, I might be able to tell you. So please feel free to make a nice donation. You can just plug this right into the URL bar. Don't, after we're done. Don't do it right now. Don't leave the stream. So I think that's all the house cleaning I need to do. So we're going to move on to part 2 of this evening, where we're going to meet Alice, the show, not the person, although the person is the person in the show, which is a show created by Emily Drossell and George Luton. And if Emily's name sounds familiar, that's because she also happens to be our audience services manager here at the York. So here is a little taste of Alice, and then its opening number.
A boat beneath the sunny sky, lingering onward.
in July.
And Abby with the story echoes fade and memories die.
Echoes fade and
Children, yet the tale to hear, eager eye and willing ear, drumming shall nestle near, dreaming as the days fly, dreaming as the summer sun, in a wonderland beneath a sunny sky.
Still she haunts me phantom wall, Alice moving under sky.
Never seen by waking eyes, ever drifting down the stream, lingering in the golden gleam of life.
What is it but a dream?
I'm dreaming of the day. In a wonderland beneath the sunny sky.
In an evening of July.
In a wonderland
Evening as the
beneath
days
the sunny
Emily, George, welcome to In the Pipeline. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Great. How are you tonight?
We're good.
Great. Where are you joining us from?
This is at the art center where I teach piano lessons. So
Excellent.
I'm just teaching all day. Emily's been answering calls for the York.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And you're nice and dressed up, unlike the rest of us. So you're putting us all to shame. So tell us a bit about Alice. How did you come to the project? How did you start working together on this? And you've written a number of other shows together as well.
So we met at Vassar. We were both there studying music, and we were talking about ideas for our joint junior recital, being voice and composition. And in the classical musical tradition sense, we were looking for text or texts to adapt and set, such as Lewis Carroll's works, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. But since we're also drama majors, we wanted to do a little more, take a little more theatrical liberty with it. So for the Facebook event for it, we actually started by calling it a junior recital, and then the next day changed it to cantata, and then Singspiel, and then had the big reveal that it was a new work of musical theater.
Because you know how classical musicians get about musical theater.
Yes.
we had to
Yeah.
into it. So yeah, and it was the first work that we collaborated on together. So it's a special one.
Terrific. So tell us a bit about the piece as a whole, other than that it is inspired by the Lewis Carroll's Alice books.
Right. So upon reading Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, I personally was very struck by the fact that, I guess I've seen it adapted a few times, right? And people find that it's like a world for children. It's like Lewis Carroll created this fantasy world that exists inside a child's mind, which is an interesting take on it, I found. But when I approached the text, I kind of found it to be very Victorian in nature, right? Written in the 1860s. And having just a very, Alice is this girl who's just constantly being told all of these rules that she doesn't understand, and these are the expectations she has to follow. She doesn't understand why everyone's telling her she's wrong all the time, and it kind of struck to me less as an adventure of a fun adventure for children, and a little more like a warning for children about the perils of adulthood. So it seemed to me like it's like the obvious way to frame Alice in Wonderland was in the way we have, which is sort of she does go through some girlhood, but for most of the show, she's a young debutante coming of age in Victorian London, and she's meeting all these expectations put upon her by her society and finding them all to be as ludicrous as we find Wonderland to be. And through that, she ends up projecting Wonderland onto the characters she meets.
Excellent. So I like the idea of doing this sort of meta narrative around the piece. You guys are actually you guys are about to go into production with this piece.
Yeah, it's actually a week from this Thursday. We open for a run at the Tank NYC. It's going to be our first fully staged production, where it started as a staged reading our junior year of college, and then we ended up doing a concert version of it for our senior project in music. Is
that what that footage in the trailer came from?
Yeah, that's from the concert.
So before we talk a little more about that, we're gonna move on. We're gonna take a moment and play the next song, and then we'll chat some more. Would you like to introduce this song for the audience?
Yeah, this song is it's a sequence called Tea Time and you're going to see the concert production cast featuring the beautiful Helen Johnson as the Red Queen, and just sort of as I was saying. That in the nature of this work is that Alice she projects the Wonderland as a coping mechanism for her the rigidities of her society. So the Red Queen, who she meets, is a chess piece in her mind, but in actuality, she is just a wealthy countess who sort of threatens ostracization to the people who cross her, and of course, in a sense, that can be boiled down to declaring someone to be beheaded. So this is Alice's first encounter with the Red Queen, as she sees her and as she really is.
Great.
What is your name, child? My name is Alice. So please, your majesty, where do you come from? And where are you going? I seem to have lost my way. I don't know what you mean by your way. All the ways around here belong to me. In fact, why are you out here at all? I only wanted to see what the garden was like, your majesty.
Terrific. George rocking the white suit.
As the Cheshire Cat.
Yes. Did you do the orchestrations as well?
I did the orchestration.
Excellent.
Yeah, trying to create a bit of a Victorian music hall.
Yes. So a lot of the text in this show is, or at least in the lyrics, is adapted directly from Lewis Carroll's writings, either from his poems or from the text of the books. How much like that song specifically? Is that original lyrics, or is that a poem that I don't know, or?
So this is actually majority of it is between an interaction between the Red Queen and Allison through the looking glass when she first discovers the chessboard. And so there's a lot of dialogue that we've adapted into lyrics and such. And of course, in the way that most adaptations of Alice in Wonderland have this conflation of the Red Queen and the Queen of Hearts, the way in which we've constructed the show is that most of the characters are amalgamations of a lot of different elements of the story. So finding a way in which Alice has so many interactions where it's just kind of oh, I've met someone new and now they hate me and let's find out why. And so in finding the through lines and the thematic material that underlies all of that, for instance, characters that insult her intelligence or think that she's unwise, kind of go into this sequence we have of her at a girls' school and the ways in which she is being specifically derided for her lack of wit or for questioning authority, whereas the Red Queen is this figure that embodies the way in which Wonderland can be manipulated and is the first person in our show that shows her that nonsense can be used to her ability. And so in that way, she's an amalgamation of all the characters that kind of have that that live on another plane besides more of the pawns of Wonderland, as it were.
Right. If she a pawn gets to the end of the chessboard, she can become a queen. She can get that power herself.
I remember that from when I learned the rules of chess. I don't remember very many of right anymore. Actually, that kind of leads into my next question, which is there have been so many takes on Alice in Wonderland over the years, as far back as early stage versions, as recent as I'm sure there was probably one. There's probably one last year. I don't know. So I'm curious what you decided to do to sort of avoid falling into the trap of replicating somebody else's take on it.
Yeah, well, I think that certainly by creating this this dual narrative of reality and fantasy and giving Alice a very strong narrative goal, right? She really wants to get to the end of this chessboard. She really wants to make her mark in society. She sees this Wonderland as this sort of metaphor for her progress through her own life. That's been really helpful, I think, to us. And we do, and as Emily was saying, she's looked through the books and found these connections through seemingly unrelated events in the Carol's text and brought them together into sort of more cohesive sequences. And for this new production, actually, Emily's created some new scenes that will really clarify 8 scenes for 8 squares on the chessboard to really clarify Alice's journey throughout Wonderland and throughout her debut into society. So I think it's our probably our meta concept that perhaps sets it apart.
I think every time we've done the production until then, George and I have always seen the Victorian world as the world we mainly reside in, with these musical moments of Wonderland. But because we've done it as a stage reading and a concert, the music has been most of the presentation. So therefore we end up presenting Wonderland. So I think we're really excited to finally have the opportunity to realize both worlds as fully as we've always seen them when you're
getting to really learn how the piece moves on stage.
Yeah.
Which is terrific. Have you been enjoying your time working with the Tank on the project?
Yes, I love working with the Tank. I've done a few projects with them this year, and they're always so wonderful and supportive, a home for emerging artists. And it's places like the Tank and like the York that are champions of new work that really are encouraging as a musical theater writer in New York, where you're like, I have all this stuff and where to put it. And so it's places like these that are just really.
Yeah, I've never worked with the Tank, but I've seen plenty of things there. Or over the years. For those who don't know, the Tank is on 36th Street or 37th.
36th.
I can't remember. 36th Street. It's in the same building as the Barrow Group used to be, and it's the space that used to be, and I think it used to be the Abingdon. The Tank used to be somewhere else entirely, and they moved a couple of years ago into the space on 36th Street. So again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. People, before we play the last song and say farewells, people can buy tickets to the run at the Tank at thetanknyc.org/calendar-1/Alice, like it says on your screen. And when are those performances?
It's August 11th through 14th with a variety of times, but it's either at noon, 7, or 9:30.
Excellent. And people can find you and probably a little more about the show at your assorted websites and Instagram handles, EmilyDrossell.com, GeorgeLuton.com, at Emily_Drossell, and at GeorgeLuton.music, as it says right there on the screen. So, again, thank you so much for joining us and sharing Alice with us tonight. We're going to play this one last song, and would you mind setting it up for the audience?
Yeah.
This text is based on actually a poem that features in Through the Looking Glass when Alice does finally ascend to queendom. And this is also the current cast at rehearsal for our upcoming show on the 11th.
So this is the most sneak peek video you can get of what you're going to see at the Tank, minus all of the staging and everything.
Featuring Bianca Berrigan, Sammy Hodes, Michael Cagnetta, and Logan Pitts, and yours truly.
Yeah.
Terrific. And the song is called Royalty. And is it self-explanatory where it's coming from in the show, or do you need to do any additional setup?
Coming from the other end of the chessboard.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Well, again, sorry.
Where everyone wants to be.
Right. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us, Emily. I'll see you tomorrow at staff meeting. And George, great to interact with you a little more after having spoken to you briefly last summer. And look really forward to, I hope I can make it to the show.
Yeah, that's
so again, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Seth. Pleasure.
Then fill up the glasses.
Well, once again, thank you so much to Jonathon, Lynch, and Michael DiGaetano, and Emily Drossell and George Luton for sharing their work with us tonight. All very talented people you'll be hearing a lot from, I hope. And thank you for joining us, audience members, however many of you there are out there. I say this every time I do one of these, but one of the things that really attracted me to the York Theater when I first started going to see shows there when I was in high school, which was quite a number of years ago, given that I am currently 29 days away from turning 40, and I don't like that, was there. But one of the things that really attracted me to the York was their intense devotion to new musical theater, because there's even then and even more now, there is nothing that I love more than seeing a good new musical. Seeing a bad new musical, not so much, but seeing a good new musical is a great thing. Musical theater is good for the soul, I feel. And I like to think that in my ongoing time as the York's literary manager, previously literary coordinator, and various other things, audience member, past script reader, etc., in my time, which is continuing, I like to feel that I've been a good steward of that intense devotion to musical theater. There's nothing I love more in the world, not even cheese or puppies. And I hope there's nothing in the world that you love more either. So again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We don't have any more in the pipelines currently on the schedule, although I am hoping to get a few more going. I've got a bunch of shows from a bunch of great people that I'd like to bring to you. So hopefully we'll have another one of these sooner rather than later. As soon as I know, you'll know. And thank you and good night. I am going to head off because I have to eat dinner, and I have a new episode of Only Murders in the Building to watch, and that waits for no man. So once again, one last time, thank you so much for joining us, and good night, everybody.